you could pick up a magic phone and call up the 20-year-old Yat and give that young man some advice, I guess you would have been in America at this point?
Yes,
okay.
I would have been in Boston. Yes.
In Boston, okay.
Yes.
If you could give him some advice based on what you know now in your old age, what would you tell him? What was he like, the 20-year-old?
First of all, I had very long hair.
Really?
Yes, I had hair down to here, right? And I used to wear jeans all the time. I don't know, I never wear jeans anymore because I don't think it's comfortable anymore. But back then I always used to wear jeans.
Okay.
I don't know that I would want to say anything. Because I think, first, I feel very blessed in what I'm able to build and do what I am today. But, it's a little bit like sort of this butterfly effect as well, right? If you tell someone something, their life will change. The direction where you go. There's many things that I might be able to tell a 20-year-old something that maybe things would be better or, but the serendipitous connections that would have happened, the path of my life in which I would have guided myself to where I am today would look different. I would not be the same person I am today. So why would I tell him something about that? Unless I am dissatisfied with who I am today. So maybe I'm comfortable with who I am. Therefore, I don't want to change it. But I would say that, me being able to go back and say something, I think would be meaning that I would not do the things that I'm doing today. And I feel very blessed in what I'm able to do, so I wouldn't say anything.
Okay, fair enough. But so you can't get out entirely of that. What was 20-year-old Yat like?
20-year-old Yat was, he was ambitious in a different way. I was never a abrasive person as a personality. I think growing up as an immigrant in a country like Austria certainly made it impossible for me.
Ego-destroying experience.
Yeah, well, outside of the humility of being not a good musician in comparison to all of my fellow students, fellow colleagues, but also the fact that as a minority, you always had to sort of fit in somehow, and you always had to make sure that you were accepted in some form or fashion. So it creates a different type of demeanor about you. So I was never an abrasive type. But I did find myself, but I was very driven. So I was coding a lot. I was driven by my online experiences, right? I was playing multi-user dungeons back then. At that point, I think when I was 20, I at that point switched over to Silicon graphics machines, which was using the IRIX operating system and connecting basically through dial-up modems back in the day. So that was kind of who I was, and I spent a lot of time online. Had some pretty thick glasses. Not thick, but they were just big. I guess that was a fashion at the time, right? Had friends, of course, but they were not necessarily all sort of tech guys, but some of them were. I guess we watched a lot of anime. Actually, that was actually my first big exposure to anime. Interesting enough, because in Austria we didn't have that, right?
Okay.
Right. And actually, one thing as well, my first big experience with hanging out with a lot of Asians. This was very different, because in Austria you didn't have any Asians to hang out, right? And then I came to Boston, and one of the big things that surprised me was Chinatown.
Yeah,
because for me it was like, wait a second, everyone kind of looks like me. But not only that, everyone speaks Chinese, right? They don't even speak English, right? So it was kind of this sort of fascinating sort of cultural sort of spot where you were in an entirely different place when you just entered that district. And for some reason, I guess I ended up making a lot of Asian friends. So that tribalism, that's actually one interesting, I never thought of it this way, but a quasi-tribalism, I guess ethnic tribalism started to happen, not because I had that background, but because I looked a certain way, right? And I remember one of the very big questions normally people would ask me as a way to figure out who I am was, first of all, where am I from? I'm from Austria. I have no idea what that is, because you're not from Taiwan or from China or from Hong Kong, right? And then the other one was a very strange thing to me was, what college did your parents go to? That was a really weird question to me, because I didn't, but apparently is quite a common question that I guess maybe Asian Americans ask each other.
That would make sense.
As a way of, your background, or maybe to figure out who
sizing
you are.
You up, or...
Maybe sizing you up, right? I didn't know how to answer that, because they went to music school, in Vienna, right? Okay, I don't know what that is, right? But that was sort of an interesting experience. And then maybe the other experience I had as well, which is, I don't drive, right? So I don't actually have a driver's license, so I don't know how to drive. Never thought it was interesting for me. But I would go with my friend, and he would look at cars, and they would see, and he wasn't Asian, he was actually Puerto Rican. And we were going to a store, and the guy looked at me and said, "Oh, BMWs is like over there." And I'm like, why, right? So that was another thing that I experienced as well that was a little different, which many of the Asian kids who were basically studying in Boston had a reputation for having Beamers, right? Which was the first time I heard that term as well.
Okay.
Which was an experience of a kind of capitalism, and frankly, a class capitalism that I had not experienced as an Asian anywhere in the world, because of course, that only happened in I guess maybe the educational environment where maybe Asian overseas kids typically had money and therefore could afford a certain lifestyle. So I did see that, and again, I didn't think too much of it, but again, these experiences, you would say, shape some of my thinking inadvertently, and around sort of basically things like equity and justice and capitalism.
Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.